We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life and liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies. We got started a bit late. I was a little late getting on, so my apologies again. But I welcome you back. Thank you for staying with us. Tonight is going to prove to be a really interesting evening. A number of months ago, I watched a special, part of a special on Black churches and their history, and I found it absolutely fascinating. Growing up in a suburban synagogue, the role of a shul is not quite the same as how the houses of worship in the African American community evolved, and we have two tremendous experts actually to talk to us about both Black churches and Black synagogues and the vital role, the historic role that they played over the years in the African American community. Quickly, Mildred Crump, our founding co-founder and fearless leader, is working her way back. She's improving each and every day. So for that, we're really grateful, and we dedicate tonight's program to her and her recovery. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Rabbi Funay, who most of you know already, and he's obviously going to speak on toward the Black synagogue part. But it's a really privilege and honor to welcome my friend for the first time, Reverend Louise Scott Roundtree, who is the manager of the Newark clergy and director of the Interfaith Clergy Committee. And I've gotten to know Ms. Roundtree over the years. Of Rabbi Simon Rosenbach, our rabbi, participates in the interfaith group. But out of the many great things about Reverend Roundtree, she brings such a positiveness, and she's brought such goodwill to Newark and in the position that she plays since her tenure began here in Newark. So it's with great pleasure, Reverend Roundtree. Welcome. So nice to have you, and looking forward to hearing your words.
It's a pleasure to be here. Brother Friedman, it is indeed an honor to be a part of this profound conversation, dialogue that is truly, truly not heard of often. I often tell people that once you leave seminary, there are not a lot of people that you can have those conversations with, Rabbi Funay. Seminary and the training that you get and the information that you obtain and the knowledge of the history that you receive about religion and the different faiths. If you were to actually stand in the synagogue and talk about what you learn in seminary, people would probably wonder why they're even sitting in the synagogue or in the church. So these conversations sort of get your brain working again on various areas that you don't get an opportunity to have these discussions. So thank you once again, Brother Friedman. And I am so excited. I'm meeting Rabbi Fournier for the first time, maybe a week ago. We have been trying to connect. Brother Friedman has been, when I tell you, back and forth, trying to make this happen. Me, myself, I don't have very much difficulty setting up conversations or relationships with people that have, whether it's a Muslim community, whether it's the Catholic community, whatever it is, I don't have a problem gathering those individuals to have conversations or to work together. And I think the perception of many people on the outside is that we don't talk to each other or we don't work together. But what they don't know is that there are people like myself and our beloved Rabbi Fournier that are doing a very different work, representing representing the synagogue, and they say I represent the Black church, but the truth of the matter is both of us represent faith. So whether we are in the synagogue or whether we're in the church, because I'm sure that when I come to Chicago or wherever he might be, he's not going to say, well, I'll see you in Newark at Good Neighbor or at Avas Shalom. He's going to say, well, where is Good Neighbor? Because I'm in town. And I likewise would do the same exact thing. So I'm excited. I'm going to actually turn it over to him because there's so many things we can talk about when you say the Black church. Now, quote unquote, I know that that's, you know, Henry Louis Gates and many people, many theologians have talked about the Black. Listen, synagogue, the Black synagogue has people of all nationalities in it. I believe the foundation of where something is founded is what draws. And then not just the foundation, the environment. Where are you located? Those things play a big part in who shows up to be a part of that ministry. But when you start just putting that tag on it, the Black, it gives it another significant meaning, because truthfully, when you say Black, the first thing Black folks think of is oppression, African-American culture. First thing they think of. And no one would ever, well, I can't say that, because if you think about the Holocaust, I can't say that no one would ever say, when you say the Black synagogue, that they wouldn't think of oppression as well. Because we have so many things in common. There's so many things that the African-American community and the Jewish community have in common. When you talk about the Holocaust, it's in common with slavery. Now, wait, the only difference with, and I have to say this, and I'm going to let Rabbi jump on in. The only difference, and I'm saying this because we all learn how to find God and religion during trials and tribulations. And during the Holocaust, I know for a fact that people wanted to get prayers through for their freedom. And the same with the Black church, who used to sing and put sheets up outside so the sound would travel. You know what I'm saying, Rabbi? There are so many similarities. We're going to focus on some of the specifics right now, but I just wanted to give an overview because we don't have 5 hours and we can't put it all in 2. So we're going to touch on some things, but I'm going to let the real expert, this awesome man of God, Rabbi Fournier, who has taken time out of his busy schedule. I do want to say I honor our council president, Mildred Crump. This conversation, as Brother Friedman stated, started some time ago with he and Pastor Bartley and council president. And some kind of way, God said, well, we're going to give Council President a vacation, and Eric Friedman is just going to make sure you do it, you know? So we love you, Eric. He's a dear friend to Council President and to myself and to the city of Newark. And yes, Rabbi Rosenbach is a part of the Newark Interfaith Alliance. And every event I have that he's available, he brings forth his prayer. He even sang, we did an opening for the NJ Pack Sounds of the City. And I invited Rabbi Rosenbach to pray. And he sang the 51st Psalm. I think it was 51st Psalm. But anyway, let me stop right now and turn it over to Rabbi Fournier, and then we'll go back and forth with some discussion. It's now in your hands, great man of God.
Thank you so very much, Reverend Roundtree. I deeply appreciate your words of introduction. Eric, I want to thank you profusely for just having this thought to bring us together in Diversity United. I want you to know that President Mildred Crump is in our prayers, and we're praying for her, that her recovery will be quick and speedy, and that the Eternal will bring her the best of health. I am so delighted to be here. Eric, you had your son with you at the synagogue today, and I said, how old was he when I first came to Newark, New Jersey? And you said he was 7 months old. Well, he's a lot beyond 7 months right now. I think he's 11 and going on 12 and looking like he's 13 or 14. But all I can say is I am so delighted that you and your wife joined me for a brief time today before you continued on your journey. And our friendship, it has been real. It has been magnified with this program this evening. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank Reverend Roundtree and Pastor Bartley, and of course, our beloved President Mildred Crump. Now, there is really very little difference between the start of the Black church and the Black synagogue. Each of these institutions, now the church in some instances was organized before the synagogues became organized. We have the AME Church, for instance, that I'm familiar with because I am a product of the AME Church. I came out of the AME Church, offered a scholarship to Allen University many years ago, many years ago, that I simply had questions that were not sufficiently answered for me. And that began my search and my journey. And my journey brought me and my family to Judaism. So our congregation, Beth Shalom, B'nai Zakin Ethiopian Hebrew Congregation, was founded in Chicago, Illinois in 1918. We are the second oldest community of Black people who identify with Judaism in the United States. The oldest community was started by William Saunders Crowdy. And that community started probably in, oh my God, the late 1800s. And his community today is throughout the United States and the Caribbean and in Africa as well. But in 1918, our congregation began as the Congregation of Ethiopian Hebrews. It's amazing that one of the oldest churches in the Christian community, particularly in New York City, happens to be called the Abyssinia Church. Abyssinia paralleling with Ethiopia. And I read a story one time that said that in fact, the Abyssinians who came and who were initially beginning to start the church were in fact a part of the Ethiopian Christian community in Ethiopia. if you do not know, Ethiopia is probably, if not the oldest, one of the oldest countries in the world where Christianity was first accepted. And Christianity and Judaism and Islam existed in ancient Ethiopia simultaneously, without any wars, without any pogroms, without any sense of destruction of their various communities. So Africa, as you know, the Jewish people became a people in Egypt. Egypt is in Africa. Egypt is the birthplace of the Jewish people. Everyone knows the story of Moses' sojourn and Joseph's sojourn into Egypt. But I have to tell you that to us, when we understand the history and the development of Judaism, we do not exclude our brothers and sisters from the Sephardic community, the Ashkenazi community, or any other, the Yemeni community, or the Mizrahi community. But what we do ask is that we also be included, that there be a space made at the table of brotherhood for the African-American Jewish community. So from 1918, our congregation was started here in Chicago, Illinois, under some very interesting circumstances. The early rabbis and members of the congregation used to go to Jewish merchants to seek assistance for what was then called the Ethiopian Settlement Association of Illinois. And in one instance, a merchant said, "Oh my God, what is that you have around your neck?" It was a mezuzah. And they took this mezuzah from the neck of Elizabeth Miller. This happened in 1925. And the police were called. And there was a court case that was covered by the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Defender. And the two rabbis, Rabbi Kano Stifson and Rabbi Joseph Lazarus, went to court. And in Judge Harry Hamlin's court, they argued, in fact, that people of African descent are indeed a part of the Jewish community. The judge and jury did not rule on their Jewishness, but our congregation was established and chartered under the laws of the state of Illinois in 1918. And so therefore, the case was thrown out. So that is the genesis of our beginning. However, as we move through the years, my congregation and myself particularly, because none of our leadership was ever admitted to any board of rabbis in the United States, simply coming from our community, at the insistence of maybe 30 rabbis from the Reform community, the conservative community, and the modern Orthodox community, said, why isn't this man a member of our body? Why isn't this man a member of the Chicago Board of Rabbis? So I was proud to say and proud to receive the endorsements of so many rabbis from various streams in the Jewish community to give their wholehearted and full-throated support for my admission into the board. Why? The yeshiva that I attended, when I graduated, there were only two people in the class, myself and another young man by the name of Rabbi Shlomo Levi. His father Chief Rabbi Levi Ben Levi was both of our instructor. He learned from Chief Rabbi Wentworth Arthur Matthew. And as we moved forward, I asked him, I said, Rabbi, you're in New York, I'm in Chicago. Do you mind if I look for some other avenues of education in Judaism? And he said, absolutely not. And I said, well, I have an opportunity to enroll in Spertus College of Judaica. It used to be called the College of Jewish Studies. The Spertus family gave a donation, and thus it gained the name Spertus, College of Judaica. And he said, I encourage you to go. So I went to Spertus. And as I entered Spertus, I met so many wonderful rabbis and teachers and professors throughout my career at Spertus College. As a matter of fact, when my family went through the Bet Din, the sponsoring rabbi said, well, do you have anybody else, any other rabbis that you would like to ask to join the Bet Din? I said, yes. And so I asked the vice president of academic affairs at Spertus College, Dr. Byron Sherwin, if he would be a part of the Bet Din. He said, absolutely. And I asked Nathaniel Stanford, Professor Nathaniel Stanford, and he said, absolutely. And then Vernon Kurtz was the other rabbi, the head of the Bet Din. And so what I didn't know was that I should not have asked a modern Orthodox rabbi and conservative rabbis to be a part of the same Bet Din. And I guess they didn't want me to know that, so everybody agreed. So that's why I say that my conversion was conservadox. It served both the elements of the Orthodox community, the modern Orthodox community, as well as the conservative community. So my entire family went through the process of conversion. We don't call it conversion, however. We call it reversion. We call it a return, a going back to that which we believe our ancestors practiced, the Hebraic way of life, before the transatlantic slave trade, and that many of our people simply brought their elements with them of Judaism across the Atlantic and into places like Brazil, the United States, and other parts of the Caribbean. So our congregation, as I said, has existed since 1918. And we are very much a part today of the broader Jewish community. I've served on boards of Jewish day schools. I've served on boards of Jewish institutions, most recently the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs, a local Chicago group that works against racism and anti-Semitism in the Chicago community. I served on that board from 1995 until I resigned and they kicked me off in 2019. And so it was a good way, it was a good while. So that my work and my connection with the Jewish community in the Chicago metropolitan area is very extensive. We do joint services and pulpit exchanges with rabbis from the North Shore of the city of Chicago to the south suburbs of the city of Chicago and within the city of Chicago as well. So our congregation is very well known throughout the city. And as a matter of fact, we have made some inroads with the New York Board of Rabbis. I have started some negotiations with them some years ago. And I am proud to say that it was about 2.5 months ago that our community was welcomed to be a part of the New York Board of Rabbis. And so that was a major achievement and accomplishment for Black Jews. And I am so proud, again, not only of being a Jew, but of being a Jew of African descent, because Jews tend to look like people in whatever country that they were found. So in Poland, the Jews look Polish. And in Germany, they look German like any other German citizen. And in China, in Kaifeng, China, where there was a thriving community of Jews, they all look Chinese. And so why would not we have a mixed pot of what the Jewish community consists of within the realms of the United States of America and Canada and the Western Hemisphere as a whole? So again, it is a blessing to be with you. And I cannot say enough about my very dear friend, Eric Friedman, who reached out to me many years ago, maybe over 11 years ago, and invited me to Newark, to their congregation at Abba Shalom, to speak there. And he has maintained that connection and that contact ever since. So I know that Eric is real in his commitment for true diversity. And he is working tirelessly to really get us united. So I'm going to stop there because, I mean, I don't want to take up all the time. Reverend Roundtree, please chime in at any time that you get the notion or the inkling. And we're not going to preach. We're not going to do derashot this evening, but simply try to give some facts on the establishment of our various communities.
So it's amazing. No, we're not going to preach, but we are men and women of faith. And when we talk, we can't talk without a spirit, for sure, for sure. That is so interesting. Jeff, listen, I am just excited with the information you just gave, because I was thinking about the AME Church. I can go back to the 1600s, but let me just start there, because you were saying that your congregation, where you are now fellowshipping, where you belong, they, how can I put this? 18, if I'm not mistaken, is when the African American Methodist Church, African Methodist Episcopal Church was founded. Of course, we know it was originated and formed by a group of African Americans, of course they say Black, who withdrew in 1787 from another ministry. And then you say 3 years later, so you were in this movement of the African Methodist Episcopal, and then you moved 3 years later into another movement, and that's how you became a part of your congregation. Eric Friedman knows how to put some folks together. My Lord, because now, as I think about the movement of God, when you start looking at the history and how it's intertwined with all these deep faiths, out of that came the African, okay, so 1821, then you got the Christian Methodist Episcopal, then you got the United Methodist Church. You have all of these movements, knowing that in 1816, there was a man named Richard Allen who stepped out on faith. And most of our religious institutions, and I say that because often, and I mean, you did a lot on the history of where you worship. That was the spiel you just gave of where you worship. But when we start talking about church as a whole, if I start talking about the Baptist faith, I got to go back to 1600, to the 1600s, when the first Baptist church was formed. But it wasn't an African American pastor that founded it. But now, if you look, and I had it somewhere, I wrote it somewhere, I don't know if I saved it, but if you look now into where did I put those notes? Because I sure put down the Baptist faith now has the African, what is it, the National Baptist Convention, the General Baptist Convention. You have a numerous amount of conventions that are now made up of bodies of people. Now, I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, Rabbi Fournier. How many conventions do the synagogues have? Do they
The
have-
synagogue, well, I'll just tell you that
I'm sort of being
I serve as the chief rabbi
okay.
of the International Israelite Board of Rabbis in the United States. I was nominated in 2016 and voted toward the end of 2016 unanimously. But before that time, I was traveling through Africa a great deal. And I came across the Jews of Nigeria,
Okay.
called the Igbo, and the Jews of South Africa, called the Limba, and the Jews of Ghana, as well as the Jews of Ethiopia, the Beit Yisrael. And so in Nigeria, I also served as the chief rabbi of their communities there. The communities in Nigeria of the Igbo people probably number several hundred thousands. Unfortunately, they are mostly substance workers, working, some do substance farming. So they're not necessarily rich or having a lot of money. But before the pandemic, I traveled to the continent of Africa at least once a year. And I would spend some time in South Africa with the Limba, in Cameroon with the Igbo, and in Nigeria with the Igbo, and Ghana. I recently went to Ghana. And then in 2019, I would travel to Ethiopia. And from Ethiopia, we worship with the remnants of the Falasha Mora, the Ethiopian Jews who had been forcibly converted to Christianity, and now they're trying to get the right to immigrate to Israel, and Israel is doing, I think, a wonderful job with trying to reconnect various families. And then from Ethiopia, we traveled to Israel, where I stayed with an Ethiopian Israeli family, me and my entourage, for several people. So my work really includes working throughout this world, particularly in Africa. My next visit, my next trip will be to Brazil, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Brazilian Africans who also identify as Jews. And so I want to go to Brazil and work with them. I want to grow the Jewish people, period. That is my goal, to grow the Jewish people. Statistics says that there may be 13, 14, 15 million Jews in the world. And we hear that there are 1.2 billion Catholics, 1.3 billion Muslims, and God knows how many Protestants we have, and Hindus.
Rabbi,
We need to grow the Jewish people.
so
And it is my mission in my life, as the Eternal strengthens me, to do that mission of growing the Jewish people throughout the world, so that instances of accusations about anti-Semitism and colonialism and all these things that have came up in the Durban conference in South Africa many years ago, I want to put a face on the Jewish community. And I want that face to be an African face. I want that face to be a face that looks like me, to say, wait a minute. Jews have never been a race. Jews have always been a multicultural people. And maybe some of my Ashkenazi brothers and sisters don't want to hear that, but that's who Jews have always been, period. And that's just the truth of the matter.
So can I ask you a question, Rabbi?
Yes.
Because just like Jews have never been erased, neither is Christianity. So when we start saying many people of the Christian faith, I know I made reference to earlier that the Black church is widely understood to include major, just for the Baptist, just the Baptist denomination alone, the National Baptist Convention, the National Baptist Convention of America, the Progressive. We have all of these movements in the Christian denomination. And so I gather my perspective on unity amongst people of faith is to first get them all to get along. That is such a challenge. Yes, we want people of faith to grow. And I know that everybody on this call is like, yay, they got bullhorns and everything else, because what you're saying is so profound, especially with a wide Jewish audience, because just like the Muslim community goes out and they profess, you know, a lie, and they're like, you know, there's no God but Allah. No, they have their language. The Jehovah's Witnesses in the Black church, they knock on doors. I tell you, if the Jewish community probably did what the Jehovah's Witnesses did, you probably would have that 1 billion or that 2 billion. Because I'm telling you, and listen, they don't come for me. The Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't, and I'm not saying anything against any denomination. They don't come for me, because when I see them, I say, praise the Lord. You know, immediately, I already know God. I don't need to know. Listen, if there's only room for 144,000, we done already. There's no more space for us. That's the real truth. Isn't that what they say? You know,
listen, that's what they say.
It's
So here we go.
They've been saying that for over 75 years. So I know that my seat is not predicated on that movement. But I admire you for standing for your faith and speaking boldly. You're speaking bold, you're speaking truth to the people as you want to project, to let them know, listen, that's like somebody said, I don't care what you say, ain't nobody gonna make me turn away from God. I don't care what you say, Jesus is my savior. I don't care what you know, whatever you say, you can't make me doubt God. And that's what you're saying. You're saying that no matter what's going on, my mission is to increase the believers and increase the body of those. Listen, this is what you do. You go in a Baptist church, and when you come out, you want somebody converted. Okay? You go into the masjid. Yeah, come on, we can all hang together, but when you leave here, I'm telling you, there's a better place over at Beth, you know.
So
no, but
here's the deal. Throughout Jewish history, Jews have really been oppressed in many lands. I mean, we have to go way before the Holocaust in Germany with Adolf Hitler's election in 1933. Right. Way before that, we have to go back to the Crusades and the pogroms.
Yes.
Throughout Europe that Jews faced and were devastated, had their communities devastated. So my mission collectively is to simply grow the Jewish people. And I'm so glad that there was a recent poll by the Pew Institute that began talking about the Jews of color within the context of the Jewish community. And many of them spoke about many of the problems that they were having due to their lack of acceptance. So to my Jewish brothers and sisters, all I want to say is, Ani Yehudi. I am a Jew. I am not a Jew from Europe. I'm not a Jew from Sephardic Spain. I'm a Jew of African descent. And we have to simply learn, and I believe the process is beginning, that Jews look like and can look like any people throughout the world, wherever they are located.
Absolutely.
And once we get there, I think we will solve many issues. I think that I'm hoping that the Jewish community can help the white Christian community in their understanding of Christianity itself. You mentioned Jesus. Where was Jesus born? If we examine where Jesus was born,
Absolutely.
my research says that Jesus didn't look like Eric. Eric's a good-looking guy, but Jesus didn't look like Eric.
He said he got woolly hair,
Yeah,
skin of bronze.
there you go. Hair of lamb's wool,
Yeah, yeah.
feet
Bronze
and
skin.
hands of bronze.
I was going to say, thank God, right?
So these pictures,
But the picture, so what is projected? We have to take down the narrow-minded projections of a Messiah who was seen as white, but when he was born, they took him and hid him in Egypt. So how you gonna hide a white kid in Egypt? I'm just asking. So we Jews must be at the forefront, as we were in the 1960s for integration and civil rights and all of these things. We must be at the forefront for truth and at the forefront for saying, let us speak truth to power. This has always been the Jewish way. This is why I became a Jew, because it enabled me to synthesize my spirituality and my intellectualism in one. And you know what? We don't have nearly all of the answers, but what we are in search of, we search diligently together for those answers. And just as the church played its role in the movement of civil rights and equal justice, so too have Black Jews been a part of that movement. I got this article that Eric sent to us, and I just wanted to give you a few names that were in the article, one of the articles, who were affiliated with the Black Jewish movement. Marvin Gaye. His father was a part of the movement that I mentioned earlier. What's her name? I think.
You mean artists?
Diana Washington.
Diana Washington.
Sam Cooke. These folks had affiliation with parallel Jewish communities.
You forgot about Sammy Davis Jr. I just read about him today.
Everybody knows Sammy Davis Jr. You know, went to the
Read about him
hospital, he woke
today.
up with the Mogen David in his hand, and then he began to ask questions. And yeah, well, you know, and then they kicked him off the bus because they
Absolutely.
said, you're Black, get in the back of the bus. And he said, no, but I'm Jewish. And so they said, the bus driver said, get off the bus. So, you know, it's been a double whammy.
Yes, sir.
I had an individual when I was working many, many years ago. He said, man, are you Jewish too? I said, yes. He said, wasn't it hard enough being Black? Did you have to go and become Jewish? Man, it seems like you cursed yourself twice. I said, no, I'm sorry. I'm not twice cursed. I'm twice blessed. I am twice blessed. And so that's who I am. That's who I will always be. And whenever people in this community rise up and want to be anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, or anti-Israel, I try to meet with them, I try to speak with them, and I try to give them the truth of the situation. This happened with my good friend Louis Farrakhan. This happened with so many others who I've approached, because I believe if you have a situation with the person, that the best thing for you to do is to seek to confront that individual, not in a hostile way, but from a philosophical way. Just try to give understanding and to try to understand where he is coming from, and yet trying to give him an understanding of who we are. So as Jews, and so for me, the state of Israel and its existence is an absolute necessity. Why? Because it is the homeland of the Jewish people. And as the homeland of the Jewish people, it's my homeland as well. Do I agree with all of the politics in Israel? No. I used to be a speaker for AIPAC. And one time I said, well, you know, Michelle Obama is married to the president of the United States, and I don't agree with all of his policies. And my wife and I at the time were married for 35 years. She certainly doesn't agree with all of my policies. So I don't necessarily agree with all of the policies, the political policies of Israel. But when you talk about the right for Israel to exist, when you talk about what they have done, have they made mistakes? Absolutely. But how many mistakes have we made here in the United States of America? What's happening right now in so many states that are seeking to deny and disenfranchise Black and brown voters throughout this country? At this very moment that is going on. Somebody in Congress that says, oh, Joe Biden is the cause of Afghanistan falling, so let's get him out of office. That's political talk, okay? It's political nonsense. So what we must do is seek paths of unification. We have a new consul general for the Midwest region here in the Chicago metropolitan area. One of his staff members reached out to me today, said, oh, Rabbi, he's here. He's so what? Consul General Cohen. I said, when he gets settled, I would love to meet with him, because I met with Avi Ezra. I'm a dear friend. And I count him as a dear friend of the former ambassador to the United States, Michael Oren from Israel, and others that have worked in the consulate for Israel. So these are my friends, and I'm going to do all that I can to support them and to take away. If you've never been to Israel, maybe you don't understand the dynamics of what the Israelis go through. And the dynamics are powerful. There was a rocket attacks a few days ago. Israel has yet to respond. I'm glad that they have exercised restraint. I'm glad that they've exercised restraint, because moving forward, as we move forward, we must get Israel to the point, and then this is something that not only Israelis and Ashkenazi Jews have to do, but as a Jew of African descent, I must do. I must speak to. I must send out the clarion call on the instrument that we call the shofar. I must blow the shofar to wake my people up, because anti-Semitism is on the rise on college campuses, particularly on many of the historically Black college campuses. These issues have to be spoken to. But I want to get back to the Black church, if I may. It has always been at the forefront of the inclusiveness and the inclusion of our people. Everybody knows Martin Luther King, but you got to go back to the minister who was the head of the church in Alabama before King got there. And what he was talking about, we have to do for self. We need to be united with our allies in every community, Jewish community, the Muslim community, the Baha'i community, the Catholic community. We need allies. And it is only when we work as allies and build allyship can we truly make an impact and make a difference in this country. And I believe that what we do in this country will reverberate around the world.
Shoosh. Rabbi Fournier, that was a heart full. I'm not going to say a mouthful, because you are speaking to the people straight from the heart. Your beliefs, your feelings. It is imperative that those of us who, I won't say practice, I don't really like to use that word. I like to use the word live the faith.
Well, Judaism is a way of life. We don't practice it.
I'm saying, just sometimes people say they practice in religion. I'm saying that you are living, and so is my walk. Now let me be clear, because the truth is we are here together driving a conversation about the Black church and about Judaism, and you have given an awesome overview and a firm stand on, what it is that you're going to do, your intentions are, and what your life's missions are regarding your faith. And the truth is, that is very well respected. I've learned growing up, my mother was an individual who dealt with individuals of all faiths. She dealt with, of course, the rabbis, priests, Muslim community. Before I was born, I had no clue that it would be something that I would end up doing as an assignment. And I know it was directed by God to actually oversee a religious community and try to keep them united and still in their respective places. I have a meeting, the Christians were like, oh, she's bringing the Muslims, this was 8 years ago. And I was, and I had to meet with them separately. I met with the Muslim community. I met with the African Clergy Alliance from Nigeria, all from different walks, because there's also a large Muslim African community. Bringing them together to first say, it's difficult for people that are looking at us on the outside and not being able to see us relate to each other, even in our different walks or our different ways of living our faith. But when we come together in the same room, the tension is so thick, people start whispering. You have Muslims that practice the same way that the Jewish, you can't touch some Muslims, you can't touch some. You walk up to them, they're like, oh, different sets, the rabbis, you almost about to get slapped if you walk up to the wrong rabbi that is one that's living in the life of Orthodox, I believe, Jews. So my assignment became very difficult, Rabbi Fournier. When they created this space for the the mayor's office of clergy affairs. I was like, well, what is that? Because the police department had one. So, and I really had a conversation with God. I was like, okay, now what? Because it didn't come with a job description. It didn't come with, here you go, Reverend. This is what you need to do to organize this. So I literally sat down and said, okay, how many rabbis do we have in Newark? You know, and that was the easiest reach because I didn't have a one official, Rabbi Simon Rosenbach. So I was like, phew, okay, that's good. You know, then I had to meet with the Muslim community, and there was 14 at that time, legitimate masjids. And the truth is, everybody know that folks throw up churches like they throw up little stores. You know, you might have a Baptist church on the corner of 20th Street today, and 7 months from now, it's something else. It might be a bodega. But we do have 14 legitimate masjids in the city of Newark. I met with them separately. And my mission became not to say, first of all, I don't have to paint no banner across my head saying I'm a Christian. Because as we're speaking about living this life of the faith that we are in, they should see some sign. There should be some evidence of the mission that we're trying to accomplish with faith leaders or with the community as a whole. So when I met with the Muslims, the Muslim community, it was, look, let's do this. Let's come together. When we go back to our respective places, we do what we do. I tell people all the time, this is another one of my famous quotes. My mission, my religion is personal, but my mission is humanity.
Well, that's a good, excellent statement.
Yeah, I had a large meeting about 6 years ago, and I needed people to understand that the Torah was here before folks started running to the movement of Christianity or Judaism. Let's be clear that nobody was running to be a Christian the day they decided to crucify Christ. Nobody. But we all, now we practice, you know, I won't say practice, now we're living the life. I say I'm living the life. Some people are learning. So watch this. That practice means I'm trying to get this thing right because I keep making mistakes. So I'm going to keep on, because they have this saying that says practice makes perfect, even though we know none of us in any form or fashion will ever be perfect. But it's become profound to me that because we have so many movements in faith, we have the Pentecostals came in 1901 and wanted to shout it. It's, you know, so when you look at all of the movements, and a lot of these movements came out of brokenness, disagreement, issues, problems. But the theological perspective of all of this, where is God?
Yeah. Well, Pastor, let me say this to you. In Chicago, I believe that our synagogue was probably one of the first synagogues in the country to open its doors to our Muslim brothers and sisters during Ramadan. This was maybe 12, 15 years ago, for the iftar prayer.
Yes.
And we opened our synagogue, a young Muslim man by the name of Rami Nashdin Shibi, born in the West Bank, came and he saw me working outside, and he said, "Oh my God, is this you're in charge of the synagogue now?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can I come in?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Would you be willing to open the doors of the synagogue to the Muslim community? Because we're surrounded by living in that are housed in Chicago." And I said, "Absolutely." And they came in, and it was during Ramadan that particular year, and they prayed the iftar prayer to break the fast, and then we broke bread together. And I have to tell you that there was an imam there from Egypt who had just got to the United States less than 6 months prior. And his interpreter said, the Imam would like to hug you. I said, hug me? He said, yeah. I said, why? He said, because he never dreamed of the day that he would
Wow.
be welcomed into a synagogue,
Wow.
into a Jewish house of worship. So my relationship with the Muslim community
It's
is
solid.
absolutely outstanding.
Solid.
And with the
That's what
Catholic
I wanted to
community,
hear, Rabbi.
and with
That
the,
right there, because the people that are listening to this conversation, we can start out. We can start out being so profound and so, but they need to understand the other relationships of those while you're increasing the Jewish, community, while you're increasing it, they need to know, and people need to know, we respect other communities and welcome them. And I know you told me that earlier, and I wanted to hear you say it, because when we had our meeting, you talked about that. And that is so, listen, all of us in some form or fashion have suffered pain.
the mountain of
Oppression.
God, Reverend Roundtree,
Mhm.
is a very broad mountain.
Yes, sir.
And different faith communities are seeking the summit of that mountain.
Yes,
So
they
they're
are.
all on different paths. But I believe if they are sincere in what they're seeking, and that is what we just read last week, Sadiq Sadiq Tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue, found in Deuteronomy. We are pursuers of justice. We are pursuers of righteousness. Righteousness does not stop at my door. I must take my righteousness into the world,
Come on here
into the world.
in the world.
And that righteousness is, again, we must see all human beings
Yes, sir.
as created in the image of God.
That's right. That's what it
And when
said.
we are able to do that, how can we destroy someone else in the image of God? How can we destroy God's image in humanity? We need to find means and vehicles of conversations like we're having this evening to take to the broader society. We need to get more evangelicals and other folks involved. Somebody said to me one time, well, what about these people that don't believe like you do? I said, they have a right to believe like they believe. But what they believe is never going to affect what I believe.
You believe. That's
and
right.
what I hold is
That's
true.
right.
And
That's
so
right.
I'm comfortable. I can sit with anyone
Strong.
at any time. And you
Strong.
know the thing that Psalms 133 says, behold, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity.
That's right.
Tovu anayim,
That's right.
shevachim gam yachad.
Yes.
It is like the precious ointment
Yes.
upon the beard that ran down to Aaron's beard, to the skirts of his garment, like the dew of Hermon. And I'll say this, I don't know how much time we have left. The word unity only appears 3 times in the Torah. It appears in Genesis, when David addresses his sons, Simeon and Levi, and he says, let not my soul be united with them because they were instruments of war. And then it appears again in the book of Psalms, and David says, let my soul be united with you and connected with the eternal. And then later on in Psalms, the only place where it appears in unity is Psalms 133. Behold, and how pleasant it is for brethren and sisters to dwell together in unity. And that unity is what we must seek. We must seek that unity. Now, the other word that I want to talk about for just a minute is righteousness. The word righteousness, sadiq, appears over 95 times in the Hebrew Holy Scriptures, and unity only appears 3. So there are many people who have their ideas of what righteousness is, but now how do we unite all of these ideas of righteousness in a unified manner for all of humanity? That's what the object must be. So I don't know. Do we have any questions, Eric? We're a little over an hour, so where are we at?
So, Rabbi,
Yes,
I have
If I could, Jeff, if I could
Yes.
just interject for a second. Reverend Roundtree, did you want to close out with any specific words?
Actually, I know there's going to be a part 2 to this, so we've covered
Okay.
quite a bit. We could never do all of this in one. I'm just excited and thankful for you, Eric Friedman, and to all who tuned in. I'm thankful to Council President Crump, and you had the vision to go forward with this plan for us to have this conversation.
So,
Knowledge is powerful and people perish for the lack of it. And Rabbi Fournier, it has been an honor to sit with you today, to throw in a couple of words, to be engaged in a conversation with you regarding your passion, your faith, and where you stand firm on your beliefs and helping, I'm not going to say your people, our people.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so very much.
So thank you both. Let's throw it open to a Q&A. As we go into that, I'd just like to quickly, there's some folks on here, I believe newcomers that I don't know everyone. So welcome. It's fantastic. Please invite people. You know, bring 2 more people on September 14th. Please. It's only as good as how many people sit in and are part of the audience. But I would like to welcome a couple people. I'd like to welcome Sue Ralpher and her racial justice group from the Universalist Church in Montclair, one of our new partners. And I also would like to welcome Kimberly White and Mr. Wright, I believe. I had an amazing for Kimberly to be here tonight is an amazing thing when sometime we have more time. But Kim, it's great to see you. You are a woman of your word. So Jeff and Stephanie, take it away.
So I have one question to get some clarification from Rabbi Fune. When you were talking about enlarging the Jewish community, were you talking about missionizing, or were you talking about reaching out to people of Jewish ancestry and people who are self-identified as Jews?
Good question.
People that self-identify as Jews, first and foremost, but also, you know, listen, historically, Jews used to missionize. And it was at a time during the Roman period that they kind of backed away from doing that. But again, I think that the faith of Judaism, the belief in Torah, needs to be expanded and shown and grown throughout the world. And when I simply say, Ani Yehudi, I am a Jew. And now, so when you ask, what is that? Then I'm going to explain to you. And I'll tell them what one of the ancient sages said, Hillel, who a gentleman came and said, teach me the Torah as I stand on one foot. And the master said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is the whole of the Torah. Everything else is commentary. Go learn it. And so for me, let's take the simple path, the path of least resistance. My dear friend who's deceased, Dr. Gary Tobin from San Francisco, who started the Institute for Jewish and Community Research, and also B'Kol Lashon. wrote a book called Opening the Gates, Proactive Conversion to Judaism, where he encourages Jewish institutions, just as we're seeing now throughout the country, of opening their doors and their gates to Jews of color, trying to increase the number of Jews of color, Black Jews, who are part of their organizations, and to give them more roles in leadership. I think they would be excellent ambassadors for the Jewish people. One of my dear friends, Robin Washington, is an editor now for the Forward newspaper. I think that's incredible. I think it's important. We must bring in more people like that. So it's not about going out and, I'm not Jehovah's Witness. I ain't knocking on nobody's door. I'm not passing out no leaflets on the street.
No street witnessing.
That's not what Judaism is about to me.
Absolutely.
But when we get people that are on spiritual journeys, they're on spiritual journeys, and the synagogue may just be a stop on their journey. It may not be their last stop.
That's right.
But how do we receive them? How do we welcome them?
That's right.
Do we push them away because the Talmud says, oh, you got to refuse them 3 times? No. No. They can come in, they can sit, they can study. And as I tell people all the time, they have to study at least 18 months in our congregation. Because if you have not had a Brit, I tell them, we can't sew it back on. So you know, if you're coming this way, you come this way. If you're not coming this way, Baruch Hashem, we still love you. I'm big enough to love you no matter what your faith is, no matter what you believe in. It does not hurt me. It does not take away from me. And that's, of all the things that I love most about the United States, it is that First Amendment to the Constitution. Of all of the things, the freedom of religion, the freedom of self-expression. And some people run off to the other side with that, but I'm going to stand as much as I can, as long as I can, to be a pursuer of righteousness, a pursuer of justice for all people. Any community, the Black community, the white community, the Hispanic community, the Chinese community, all communities. I see all of us as being created in the image of God.
And there you have it, straight from the awesome Rabbi Fournier in Chicago. There you have it. You heard it straight from his mouth. That's right. I see Kimberly Wright, somebody raising their hands. Listen, they're giving God a Jewish praise. they threw their hands up in there and they said, that's right, Rabbi. You're talking true. I see them. You can't, I don't know if you can see them, but they holiness is right.
So I want to thank you, Reverend Roundtree. I have to tell you, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
From my first meeting with you,
yes, sir,
until this evening, and I'm praying that you will be back here and assisting us and helping us grow and get this message out to a broader audience.
Yes.
It is so very important that we do this.
Yes.
And again, President Mildred Crump, her vision, along with my good brother, Eric Friedman, it has really just been fantastic, along with Pastor Bartley. So I'm glad that you are now on the team.
Yes.
And Jeff, we thank God for you. for helping us in many of the things that we're doing. So I am honored. And I have to tell you that out of all the Zooms that I do, this is one of the most enjoyable. And believe me, I do a lot of Zooms. I do a
can
lot
imagine.
of Zooms. But working for Diversity United
Diversity United.
is absolutely a must, in my
stand on
humble
that.
opinion.
I stand on that, Rabbi Fournier, because the truth of the matter is God was a God of variety. If he wasn't, we'd all be wearing the same thing, looking the same way, all the same complexion. And I tell individuals, you know, y'all get a little twisted thinking because we different complexion and some folks are a little clearer than others and they different. Absolutely not. That word you said earlier about we're all being created in God's image, the truth of the matter is all of us have a piece of God in us if we were created in God's image. That means no matter what we look like on the outside, on the inside, we listen, he said no sermons. So let me just stop right there. But the truth is, I respect and thank God that we have had this conversation. Looking forward to part 2. Were there any questions? I saw Eric Friedman's son peep in and make a cameo. Brother Friedman.
He wanted to see who the famous Reverend Luis Scott Roundtree was.
Stop it. Stop it. You know I'm going to say, listen, you know I'm going to say there's one famous person in the whole bunch. Who is it, Rabbi?
Say again?
One famous person in the whole bunch that supersedes all of us.
God himself.
Come on here. Come on here. God is no respecter of persons. I'm not going to ever, I appreciate all of that, but we're going to work towards doing what Rabbi said. And the reason why we're going to work towards that, because we also want some other folks to come back to church also. So while we're trying to give, you know, he's trying to make sure we get the Jewish community growing. And we got some folks that since this pandemic, and before we close, let's talk about it, because that's been one of the most, this has been a very difficult season. And if you think they wasn't walking to the church before, Lord have mercy. Okay, listen, we really got to do some work and let them know, listen, it's okay. We're not going to be in long. You know, come on back, it's social distance, you know. But there's so many other ways to do ministry now. Look at what we're doing. If you know, the elders are learning. Listen, the elders have learned how to do Zoom from their grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
So even those we can't get, I've been holding Zooms for 17 months because I refuse to let the pandemic sever the communication between me and 400 faith leaders. And I just disappeared off the scene and said, okay, God, we shut in, we shut down. I can't meet with them. I can't go to City Hall. Had I done that, then at some point trying to reach them, they'd have been like, where you been? So during the period of difficulty, I had to keep the lines of communication open, pray with them, keep everything going as normal on a social media level so that they would know. Now when I have a meeting, 50 people show up, even after the pandemic, you know, so, but it's all a matter of consistency, perseverance, and the mission you're on. No doubt in my mind that everybody on this Zoom that's tuned in will be giving, saying, shalom. Great job.
Reverend Roundtree, you gave me the perfect segue into a little promo for next month. For those of you who are just joining us for the first time, we actually have a bit of a coup. We have a world-renowned scientist named Rob DeSalle from the Sackler Institute of Genomics and the American Museum of Natural History. Reverend Roundtree, you mentioned color of our skin. Do you know how much DNA you and I share?
Yes, that's why I said that on the end. It's on what's on the inside. It's not what we see on the outside. We share a whole lot.
So just to whet everyone's appetite, most people probably maybe know this already, but I did not. So we actually share 99.9% of the same DNA. And we have to sit there and listen to people day after day, night after night, focus on our differences. So I was having a discussion with Pastor Bartley, just a kind of a off the cuff, passionate discussion. And he was stunned when I told him that. And, you know, in the end, race is, it's a social construct. It's man-made. You mentioned the color of our skin. Well, guess what? When I was in school, and probably many of you can relate, people with red hair were made really a lot of fun of. So it might sound absurd, but think about it. Redheads have to drink out of this water cooler. Your hair color, your eye color, your skin color are simply characteristics of who we are as people. When, you know, we ought to get to the point, and I think you were touching on it, where we don't really think so much about someone's skin pigment no differently than we do about the color of their hair or the color of their eyes. Anyway, Rob DeSalle will, on September 14th, address us in a much more erudite and scientific way. But he's written several books on the misuse of science and genetics in race. And as I said, race is man-made. Keep that in mind. There's 2 books that he's authored. You know, we have a month or so to try to read part of them. I encourage everybody to do so to make for a more informative discussion on September 14th. Stephanie, we thank Jeff. We thank Stephanie for her steadfastness during these first 6 months and bringing your knowledge to this. So Jeff and Stephanie, please continue with any Q&A.
I have if I have a question, is there, I don't know, am I able to just go ahead and ask it or make a statement, or how is this structured?
Well,
Yes.
you have the floor.
Who is this?
Okay.
Go for it.
Well, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to say to Rabbi Fournier and to Reverend Roundtree and Eric how much my husband and I have thoroughly enjoyed just the entire engagement this evening. So thank you so much, and thank everyone this evening. But in addition to that, just to, in the same vein as what Eric was just speaking of, my husband and I were kind of dialoguing a bit here just about, when we look at things even like this pandemic, and we look at whether or not this pandemic is, many times the question arises, do you think it's, it was devastating, it's horrible. But in many ways, I've seen good, many ways God has a funny way of bringing good things out of bad, out of things that seem bad. And so when we examine our differences, I think that the pandemic has been a way of identifying our similarities, as you've mentioned. There are certain things that are great equalizers. And so the pandemic isn't picking race, color of eyes, color of hair, as Eric mentioned. We have now the opportunity to kind of peel back some of the layers of mistrust and of the lacks of diversity and all those things that have been in existence for so long, and really look at the core of who we really are, not only as a country and as a world, but just even neighbors, people that we haven't spoken to or that we haven't had intimate, conversations with in a very long time. These doors have now been opened. So to all of your points this evening, I think this is a really great opportunity for us to open the door to say, shalom, to say, we welcome conversations with a multitude of people because we have more in common than we'll ever have that can divide us. And again, this is one way, although it's tragic on one end, we can also see it as an opportunity for us to unite around those things that we have in common. So I just wanted to share that and to say I'm really happy that we're having these conversations and that we have opportunities to grow spiritually and individually and collectively.
Good.
Amen. Miss Kimberly,
Amen.
amen.
So we good?
So we don't have any more questions.
Okay. I just want to shout out to everyone who took the time to listen to us on this evening. And Rabbi Rosenbach, I love you. I love you. Look at him. He's holding his chin. Hi.
It
My
looks like
only
we have
rabbi in the city of
a question from Sharon.
Yeah,
Sharon. Okay.
hi, good evening. Thank you. Rabbi Fournier, you mentioned that you reach out to different faiths and, sharing Judaism and discussions. Have you had any, I want to say, discussions with the leaders maybe, or some of the elders of the Jehovah's Witness faith? Usually they tend to be a little more standoffish. I'm just wondering what's your experience with them?
With Jehovah Witnesses?
Yes, sir.
My experience is really based here in Chicago. And I was reading a Talmud sitting out in my yard one evening, and a couple of Jehovah Witnesses came by and they asked, "Oh, you're reading? Is that the Bible?" I said, "No, it's the Talmud." And they said, "What's the Talmud?" So I told them what it was. It was Jewish writings and so forth from rabbis of ancient past. And they said, "Rabbis, are you Jewish?" I said, "Yes." And all I can tell you is they walk right by my house every time they come out. And it's okay. It's okay. I know that I think Charles Taz Russell started the Jehovah Witnesses movement. And again, I tell people all the time, this is America. And if there's one thing I am more than delighted with, is that we have, our First Amendment gives us a freedom of religious expression. And so I don't agree with the Jehovah Witnesses, but my God, thank God they have a right to their beliefs. But they don't come by my house anymore. I mean, it's been, my God, 20 years. And they purposely walk by, don't knock on that door.
Okay.
I guess that settles that.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can anyone
Yes.
hear me? Oh, yeah, I have friends that are Jehovah's Witnesses, and they talk the Bible a bit to me, and I'm pretty respectful to listen to them, and but when you share your Judaism views, I have found that they shut you out. That was my
Absolutely.
They do that
experience.
with all religions. If you're not strong, if your foundation is not strong in your belief, and
Yeah.
you're not knowledgeable of what you're having a conversation with them about, they will try to overshadow. But if you have the knowledge of what you're talking to them about, so just like I was saying earlier, when they see me, if you show any sign of, how can I put it? If you show any sign, I don't want to say authority in your faith. If you show any sign of a little something, because we all know that different books have been written. We know that there's different books have been written. They wrote a book. Everything in that book calls God Jehovah. They have that number, that 144. We know that the Torah is the truth, the Talmud is the truth. So if you know what you know and you have a conversation with them, you can pretty much, they'll say, okay, and they'll back up. But if they feel like they can engage and you give them a little time, and I believe everybody's worth a little time, I'll give you enough time so I can engage with you to let you know what I really know. And then we can talk about it back and forth. But I'm not going to go back and forth with you about something that's not a fact if I know the truth. So if you know the truth and you're telling them the truth and they start coming after you with the, if they're not sure what the truth is and all they know is what they have, they'll back away. But I don't argue with them, and like Rabbi Fournier say, they walk right by his house because they already know there's a challenge for the truth. And they don't want, but now if you don't know nothing, they'll spend 5 hours with you. They'll sit in your living room. Yes, they will sit right there. They're going to convince you that if you don't do right, you ain't going to make that 144,000. You're not going to make it in.
You know, there's a book called, I forget who it's by, called You Take Jesus, I'll Take God. And I used to give this book and suggest it to people who had issues with the Jehovah Witness people, because they are the premier group, and I think evangelizing, particularly in the city of Chicago. As I said, I know that they go all over, but in the city of Chicago, I think I've been looking for the black X on my door. I know it's there, but they probably wrote it with invisible ink, because they haven't stopped here in over 20 years.
Well, you know, just I haven't experienced a Jehovah's Witness in a while. I guess they walk by my door too, which is you know, it's okay. But I think a lot of what I'm feeling is I'm looking more at what people do. I'm looking more at the acts that people choose to engage in. I'm looking at whether or not people choose to be kind, whether or not people choose to love, how
Yes.
people engage with one another, versus, you know, a lot of times you can talk a good game, but
My Lord.
can you walk the talk, and what is it that you're actually doing and producing that allows me to know where your heart is? And so that's really where we're trying to be more rooted, and trying to see where forums like this can be more prolific, so that we can talk out our differences or our similarities, and also identify ways that we can actively display what we're feeling in our heart and what God has called us to do. So, you know, that's more so where we are. So they can keep walking by my door. That's perfectly fine. But I'm looking more so at what they do. You know, what is it that you do as a person that reveals who you are and whose you are?
Yeah. Eric, could I say a word? Or?
Yes, by all means. Sorry.
Yeah. Rabbi Fournier and Reverend Roundtree, was really incredible. This was so special, so special. I just want to thank the both of you. And Rabbi, I'd never heard your entire story, and what a phenomenal story. And the last thing I want to say, because I want to be brief, is that, you know, the war that's going on now, the fault line is an attack against Blackness, against your face, whether it's African American or Jewish or whatever, and holding on to the old ideas of whiteness. George Washington, you know, Charlton Heston, you know, movie Moses, you know, I mean, Jesus, the iconic pictures on stained glass windows in Europe, that, you know, Moses and Jesus look nothing like. And the idea that these figures, Moses, Jesus, a Jew, could be dark it's shaking the very roots of what they are. So I'm glad you're on the case, and I'll talk to you later about my musical, and thank you for everything that you've done, you know, to help me in our personal conversations. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just so everyone knows, Mr. Walter, who just spoke, Walter Robinson, is the composer who put together the preamble that we've been witnessing to in advance of each of our programs. He's from Montgomery, Alabama. He's he's incredibly talented guy himself. But Walter, thank you. Were there other questions, Stephanie or Jeff?
No.
So, Reverend Roundtree.
Yes.
You're required now to be a partner for the rest of the 6 months that are
No
left.
problem. No problem. Let's just make sure we get this. I'm still in City Hall, by the way, doing this while everyone else
So am I.
gets to be home. This is what we get to. I know you are, Stephanie, because you represent the Honorable Mildred C. Crump on today. So just give me a schedule if we can do, if this would be helpful.
But yeah, I just, Rabbi,
Can we
Rabbi
do 60 days at a time, like the schedule, so we can get our calendars together?
September is on September 14th because of the Jewish holidays.
Okay.
But moving forward after that, it's the third Tuesday of each month. But the point is your contribution to the discussion tonight was tremendous. I know we just touching the tip of the iceberg. Rabbi Fune.
Just driving Rabbi Fune. I wasn't. I was just driving, like, you know how every.
We know talent. We know talent when we see it. We picked the right moderator. But Rabbi Fune,
I'm excited about next month. Listen, everybody on needs to invite at least 2 people or 3.
Please.
This is, look, here go the Baptist folk, right? I want each of you to look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, oh neighbor, if you're not doing anything, come and join us. I'm going to send you the link.
That's very right. Very
But
true.
so who spent a better night than this recently in terms of just hanging and learning about other people,
Everybody.
feeling like you got a little.
Everybody, because they all just met me.
I mean,
everybody learned something tonight.
I'm saying it's such a we don't have the opportunity to do it, as Kimberly was saying, that often. This with the people who are paneling this program, it's a really unique opportunity. We got to get people to see this. I know everybody here is committed. It was such a worthwhile evening. It already has me excited about the next number of months. Please join us, obviously September 14th, but also share with us your ideas. Bring everybody here seems to be involved in some type of racial justice, social justice program. Come, bring people. But I'll leave you with this, Reverend Roundtree and Rabbi Fune. I love doing this kind of thing because I feel like it expands the dimensions of my own Judaism. And that's why I don't understand why, Rabbi Fune, you hammered this home. What are people afraid of? You see, you can sit down in a room with anybody. If you don't like them, you don't get together the next week. But tonight was fabulous. Thank you, Reverend Roundtree, for leading this. Rabbi Fune, your insights were tremendously worthwhile, and I look forward to building on this with everyone. So please bring a couple folks next time.
Eric, to you and to Reverend Roundtree and to Stephanie and to all of the guests, Jeff, who've been helping with this, I deeply appreciate this opportunity, and I am looking forward to the next presentation on September the 14th and to what we're going to plan moving forward. So I am with you. Thank you all for being here. I deeply, deeply appreciate you.
Stephanie and Jeff, again, our hats off to you. Thank you for all the great support behind the scenes, and pass on our good wishes to President Crump. She's in our thoughts and prayers. So.
You know what I'm thinking for the future? At some point, I'd like to see this panel grow and be able to put it on our city Facebook page Live, Rabbi Fournier?
Say again?
I would like to, at some point, see, can we put this on our Facebook Live page?
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yep.
Not only Facebook Live, but listen,
It's
if
the
you
City
would
of
do
New
something with
York's
this
Facebook.
pandemic, I'll travel out to New Jersey for a live presentation.
So I'm saying the City of Newark has a Facebook page which has a very, very large audience.
Ah,
So the
okay.
last time I did a panel, Chuck's, the breakfast I did had 20,000 viewers. So I did a 60-minute candle lighting for COVID victims from Newark. We had about 50,000 viewers. So the City of Newark has a very large, I did a human trafficking, something that's not really popular.
Right.
I did a human trafficking seminar, and I got to do all of these things on Facebook Live with the faith-based community because there are areas that need domestic violence. These things all needed to be addressed. So why not talk about the Black church and the synagogue? And I will visit that with our communications office, maybe in several months during the winter. I don't know. We'll figure that out with Eric Friedman, and we'll move forward on that.
Absolutely.
after the
Sounds
next-
good.
After the next 2 episodes.
All right.
All right.
Thank you all.
Godspeed.
This is
Godspeed.
beautiful.
Thank you,
Bless
everyone.
you all. Have a great evening.
Good evening to all you.
Good
God
night.
bless.
Thanks for your participation.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be well.
Be well, everyone. Shalom.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Shalom, shalom.
Ciao for now.